Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky here again this week for Jan's Pans and Plans. So I want to tell you about some plans accomplished. This was a big week coming out of my subcommittee, Consumer Protection and Commerce. It's part of the Energy and Commerce Committee, and we passed 3 bills. One is mine, called the Sturdy Act. And I think you'd be surprised to know that every hour a child is injured when a dresser or some kind of cabinet falls over on them. And once every 10 days, a child dies from that. So we're talking about over time, hundreds of children that have died unnecessarily. And so this legislation requires the Consumer Product Safety Commission to have a mandatory instead of the current voluntary standard, and to fix these dressers in a way that children, they're usually 8 years or younger, and often exploring the dresser or climbing on it, that these dressers are sturdy enough to not kill children. Then we also passed a bill that deals with carbon monoxide poisoning prevention act. And we know an amazing number of people every year. 50,000 are affected by carbon monoxide poisoning, and many die from carbon monoxide poisoning. This, again, can be fixed. You know, it's a odorless and tasteless gas. And if there are the carbon monoxide alarms, then we could prevent that. And so this legislation requires an education program, but it also allows states to have money that they can buy these carbon monoxide detectors, and that send off an alarm just like a smoke detector, for poor people, low-income people, and for senior citizens so that they're in homes. So we can avoid some deaths there. And finally, there are dangerous portable fuel containers. And we passed a bill that would add just a very cheap little item to prevent these from exploding. You know, these kinds of fuel containers may be in your basement because you have fuel for your lawnmower or your snow blower. And there are too many instances of these things exploding. And so passed a law now out of the House anyway, that would require this device to be in all of these fuel containers. You know, these are not necessarily the big headline stories, but I love it because we are saving lives. These are the stuff of everyday life. I wanted to tell you that last week we did some important things on the environment that I didn't tell you about. We can stop drilling in the Arctic, which is really great. And we prohibit drilling on the Pacific and the Atlantic coast, offshore drilling. Now, at least the House has passed legislation to stop it. Oh, and also in the Gulf of Mexico. This week, we dealt with climate change. Have you heard of Greta Thunberg? She's 16 years old. She made a speech to the UN when she was 15 years old, and she is now an international leader demanding an urgent response to what she says is a crisis. I just want to read one sentence that Greta said in her speech at the United Nations. She said to the members, so brave, 15 years old when she did this, "You say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes." She is fierce, and she is saying that whether we as adults and whether lawmakers around the world like it or not, that the youth of this world, and I'm hoping to make it back to Chicago to stand with my grandson, one of the many students all over the country that are going to be walking out of their classrooms demanding climate action right away. I wanted to also talk to you about gun violence. There's a gun violence forum. We're going to be having a big rally next week in Washington. We are pushing. Our message is really to Mitch McConnell, telling him call the bill. We're talking mainly, at least to begin with, the the bill that would say that everyone has to have a background check, universal background checks. 93% of Americans support that. In other words, just about everybody says gun owners, NRA members, we have to do this. So there's going to be a lot of action on that. And then prescription drugs, we promised, Democrats did to the American people, that we would do everything we could to lower drug prices. The Democrats have now introduced a piece of legislation that would have negotiation for lower drug prices, which is really fantastic, something that we need so badly, and penalties if these drug companies won't negotiate for lower prices. So we're committed to doing this. We're going to carry this all the way because, if we can have the greatest cures, but as one of our witnesses said, it's not going to help if people can't afford their drugs. So we're on our way. So it's all pretty much plans this week, not so many plans. I'll be back next week. Thank you.